kick off here. Did you get any other questions from people?
No, I got a couple questions. Yeah, not helpful questions.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just not going to worry about it. But, you know, I feel like we always get one or two in there. So I am going to, see if comments will not pop up, but we'll get them in Instagram.
Yeah, we'll see them.
See if it works for you this time, because it didn't work for me last time. But
I will put it on my phone if it doesn't.
Oh, yeah, maybe that'll do it.
In fact, hold on a sec. I'm going to get something ready just in case. In fact, I will get prepped and ready on that front. All right.
All right. Should we do this? Do this thing? That's in a minute. Take my time.
Yeah, I think we can take our time. I think we got some good questions, and we'll get some fun ones from everyone. Oh, so the prizes will be a box of these guys. And so the first question, which I think will lead into basically me showing all this, is I got one that's like, what's your favorite, fuel sources? And so, I think using that to kick off and be like, well, actually, that's what our tonight's prizes giveaway will be. And then, so I've got some precision. Also, I have a few of these. And then I was thinking maybe having a few winners, because I think it's like $25 for this and like $20 for the pack of these. So like 3 winners or something like that.
Cool.
In that way, kind of share the love.
Sounds good to me, man.
Cool.
All right.
Ready to go when you are.
Should we go live over there?
Let's do it.
I feel like this might be a little bit delayed over on Instagram, but we'll do our best to field questions.
Exactly right. Yeah.
But happy 2025, man.
Happy New Year.
I know we have 5. It's a whole new year. Same us, new year.
Same us, new year. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions about, any New Year's resolutions, and I'm just carrying the momentum that I feel like I've had in 2024 into 2025. That's my New Year's resolution. Keep the momentum going.
Nice. How you doing today? What have you been up to?
I'm really good. Holidays are always a fun adventure, and had a little trip down to Death Valley, and now just hanging back home in San Francisco. And so things are good. I'm full of joy, and yeah. So how about you? What you been up to? How's the weather up in Truckee?
I have been doing well. I have been skiing a fair amount. I had a little lapse in my running, but getting back into things this week. I was in a lottery for the Cherry Blossom 10 miler out in DC.
Okay. Did you get in?
I got in. So I got a road 10 mile early April, which I'm super
excited.
Doing it with meeting up with my old college roommate who was a sprinter back in the day. So
amazing.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that and super psyched. But I got to follow up. You were in Death Valley, but you weren't just there like checking out the pretty scenery. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so went down there for FKT attempt on a loop called the Marble Canyon Cottonwood Loop. And I had run it a couple years before, didn't quite get it last time. And so with a little bit of added fitness and know-how, went back and was able to put it down and knocked about 15 minutes off the FKT. And so that was a good way to end 2025.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Checking another FKT off off the list in 2024 last.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah. So what are we going to be chatting about this evening? We've got some questions. Why don't you give us kind of an overview of what our topic is, and maybe we can start off with that first question we got.
Of course, yeah. So we're going to be talking about fueling, hydrating. A lot of the questions have been around fueling and hydrating within competition and races and training. So we might kind of gravitate towards that. Maybe a future episode we'll talk about outside of training. And so, yeah, we've got a few questions, but if you're watching here, please ask away within the comment section and we'll get to them. So I'm going to actually put it here. And we will get started. The first question that we had was a nice one. Just what's your favorite high carb fueling things? And so that actually dovetails into what people could be winning today, because we are going to be giving away one of my favorite high carb gels. It's pretty simple. It's just called Carb Fuel. No frills. They just give you carbs, a lot of them, 50 grams per gel packet. Nice. And as we'll probably get into, all the rage right now is high carb fueling. And these have 50 grams of carbs in one little packet. GU has been kind of like a tried and true, and they have a little over 20. And so this is about double that. And I love it because the less things I have to work and pull open and deal with, the better. I just want to focus on running, and these go down super smooth. They're not the best tasting, to be honest. Probably the worst thing about them, but you only taste them for a little bit. They go down, they stay down, and I love them. So that is going to be one of our giveaways. And then the second, just in general, precision. Everything that I've had from them was amazing. This is an even bigger gel packet, 90 grams, and also goes down smooth. Taste also is okay. It's fine. I mean, there's not a lot of these that are like amazing tasting, in my opinion. So there's going to be a pack giveaway of these as well. And those are my favorite as far as gels go. Do you have any favorites that you like to use?
In terms of gels, I'm not a huge fan
of
gels, honestly. I, definitely did some GUs in the past. I haven't had a ton of like super big days, so I haven't, like, space hasn't been at a premium. So I've kind of had this luxury of being able to like choose my own adventure, so to speak, when it comes to kind of high carb fuel. So, often one of my go-tos on long runs, long skis are just over the counter Pop-Tarts.
Over the counter, I love it.
Whatever, I'm not too particular. I some of those really like strange flavors I shy away from, but whatever the local grocery outlet happens to have in stock.
Cinnamon is my favorite.
Got into that last year. Yeah.
It's typically what I have at least one or two cinnamon Pop-Tart packets before a big thing. That just seems to do it for me. I've had really good luck with those.
Nice. But I feel like those high carb gels, and we'll talk a little bit about this, of just kind of, chance for folks to win some fuel for themselves by dropping a comment into the chat question. We'll try to get to those. But yeah, I mean, I think, one of the big things that we're seeing, I think, especially in the ultra world, is the impact of high carb fueling on performance and increasing capacity. But yeah, I'm just kind of looking at our question bank here, and maybe you just want to start us off on that second question, Jojo, and kind of what's the best way to practice fueling and training runs to kind of prepare for some of that stuff?
Yeah, so I think about this in two kind of ways. It's like, one, finding what works for you is kind of the important thing, because, for these long events. We're talking about ultras. A big part of this high carb fueling has come from like biking and long distance events like that. So, I try to find what works for me because not everything feels the same. GOOs kind of feel a little different than some of these ones that I've shown in the past. And so I've tried to gravitate towards what works and what feels better. And so trying a variety of things, seeing what works, that's, I think, one of the best things you can do. And then the second thing is, it's not exactly for everyone, or like, there's no set number that, is optimal as far as how many grams of carbs you need. But I think in general, especially as, the longer the distance, the more that you can feasibly take in, it seems to be, for many people, the better improved performance they see. Now, there are cases of people, I'm pretty sure, Courtney Dauwalter has basically come out and said that she only fuels at like 60 grams of carbs an hour, which compared to some of the numbers that people are putting out or in, like upwards of 120, 150. I've even heard of some 180 at times. And so, finding what works for you. But in general, I would say, practicing a little more and more. And just like with training, bumping up in increments that seem feasible. So, you may not want to go from 30 grams, if that's what you're used to, up to 90. That might not turn out so well, because while the gut is adaptable and we'll get used to these higher amounts, it won't do so overnight. It can be pretty fast, but you gotta slow your roll a little bit there.
For sure. I think totally right. You got to find what works for you. And I think, that first step is kind of like, all right, well, like what's, starting off, kind of what tastes good, or, what you can get down. And then, trying to increase that, like you're saying, increasing that intake progressively. And not everybody's the same. I mean, I think that, training mileage, hours, however you want to break down training, like, people are all over the place and having success, right? There's not a mileage per week that people need to hit.
Exactly.
Right. To be good. There's not some sort of like kind of arbitrary objective cutoff. So, I think that obviously, as you pointed out, we're seeing some really good research and examples of higher carb intake having positive net result. But so there's some messaging there, but probably like the amounts within that, are going to vary broadly, right? Like try to do a little bit more than you're doing maybe. And especially in training, right? Because come race day, especially when it comes to 100-mile, which I think this question was kind of phrased in that context, there might be a time at which you're not, things can happen over a course of 100 miles.
Right.
So if you're training and you're able to take on maybe a little bit more than kind of the average at points in the 100, it might just kind of offset some of those times that, you're not able to get much down. And I think in those moments, like you kind of have to accept it a little bit. You can't try to like force too much down. You kind of just have to accept where you're at and keep moving and see if you can kind of bring the gut back around.
Exactly. It can be very hard when you start getting into higher intensity levels as your body is shuttling blood to those working muscles and the legs. That blood kind of goes away from your digestive tract, and then sometimes it can be very difficult to ingest what could be normal for you. So the understanding like how you react at higher levels of intensity can be beneficial to understand and better fuel during race, because there may be times when, hey, you're trying to make a cutoff and you need to kind of bump up your intensity for at least to get to that checkpoint. And then once you kind of get there and you kind of have your next window of time, you can calm down, get your fueling back in order, and try to recoup.
Totally. And I think, yeah, the important thing is, finding your thing. We've got a few giveaways of different fuels tonight. If you want to go ahead and drop a question in the comments, so we can go ahead and answer those. But yeah, trying to look here. I don't know. Do you want to grab our next question?
Yeah. So the next question is, how many grams of carbs are you consuming per hour in the 100-mile race? So me personally, I've been trying to reach anywhere in the 80, 90, 100 grams of carbs an hour. That seems to be like where I'm kind of reaching my so-called limit at the moment. I think a general place to be is anywhere in like the 50, 60 at least, I think is a good starting point to try to reach and get to for your races. And I think that should give anyone who's below that kind of level a boost in their performance. And then again, it's just about seeing what and how much you can kind of consume during your running that will kind of educate you and your what you should be taking in per your race per hour.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, it's like, you mentioned some of these, finding that sweet spot, right? Increasing it, 80 to 100, I think might be tough, but it's doable. Whereas I feel like some of these numbers, and I think this is where like it pays to be thoughtful about reading research, right? Like if we're looking at cycling intake, that's a very different sport. And like you don't really get much like jostling. It's maybe not like the most comfortable position for your gut, but you're not getting like the jostling you're getting with running.
Exactly.
Like looking at fuel amounts for, for cycling versus running, I'd expect those to be a little bit different, right? And like, Tour de France guys, especially, like this is their career. I think one of the other things I feel like want to point out in terms of that is I feel like I've seen this a little bit. We're seeing a little bit of it in the ski world.
Okay.
I think I know that Martin gels are kind of playing around with sodium bicarb as an additive.
Okay.
And there's evidence for it as like a lactic acid buffer. But it's super hard on your stomach. And for some people, I've had athletes try it working with myself and a dietitian, and like they're like, absolutely not. It just wrecked my stomach. Right. So just to kind of put a little caveat out there, studies are helpful, but they don't apply to everybody.
Yeah, there's always going to be these outliers within these studies where these high carb diet or during intense activity or during activity, some people didn't respond to that. The average might say and suggest that yes, higher carbs is a better way to fuel your racing, but there are going to be some people again on those outliers where they can do 180 and these people can only do 40. So it really comes down to being individualistic at the end of the day. Yeah,
I think too, in thinking about this and thinking about those gels we've got, if people want to drop comments or questions in the chat to have a chance at winning. What do I got over there? Precision. We're
gonna get some carb fuel gel packets, a big pack of them, and then a 3-pack of the Precision Fuel that we have here to try out.
Nice. What I was going to say though too is, even we're talking kind of big stuff right now, but even kind of on small scale, it's not just about fueling for specific workouts, right? Like if you're of course, if you're doing a 3 hour long run, of course you want, to have plenty of carbs with you. But if you're, even if you're training a lot, and being strategic about, okay, carbs are going to help kind of keep those energy stores up. So if you're doing, shorter sessions but double days, carbs still have a pretty valuable place, right? It's not just, of course, long runs, we want to make sure that we've got probably more than we really need, especially in training. Weight's not a huge concern. Probably, the difference between that extra gel isn't going to cost you too much for a training run. But even, I think finishing up intensity sessions or even an hour and a half run, if you've got a second session that day, getting some carbs in right away to make sure that you're kind of keeping energy levels constant too. So just want to kind of toss that in there as like, yeah, we might be chatting about, some of these ultra distances, but there's still a super crucial role for this in kind of more kind of everyday training routines, right? Like it's not just about fueling during the long run or hydrating for that matter during the long run.
Totally.
I do think we had a question about hydration. Just going to pull. How much water should I be drinking during exercise?
Yeah. You want me to take this one?
Yeah. Do you want to start us off?
Sure. Yeah. So, as with everything, we have differences, and generally speaking, I think that in what we call ideal conditions, we're not sweating as much as what we could be in, let's say, like heat, or if we're doing even more intense activity than maybe like a normal jog. So this can vary quite a bit, and I think one good way in which you can get a baseline is essentially figuring out your sweat rate. And so it's it's not super difficult to find that out. All you really have to do is weigh yourself without any clothes on, usually before you go out for preferably like an hour run, because typically we're thinking about these things in hour increments. And so weigh yourself and then go out for an hour run. And, it can be just like a normal easy run, or if, you want to test it out and go for a little harder run, that's fine too. But once you're done with that run, wipe yourself down, weigh yourself again, and see how much weight you've lost in that hour. And that should correspond to how much actual water and sweat you've lost. And then you can use that as a baseline for, hey, okay, on a normal day, on a normal run, I need half a liter of water to refill what I've lost. And again, that can vary widely. I think when I did that last, it was closer to 1 liter in an hour. And that can vary again from different things. I use the sauna a lot, and that can increase your sweat rate. Or if you live in a heat, just like a hot environment, that will increase your sweat rate. So there's definitely, I think, baselines that I generally recommend. I used to think 0.5 liters an hour was enough, but now I'm starting to think that I think a little more than that is going to be my guidance to athletes. And my athletes is, half a liter isn't enough, especially for, your race settings.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that simple test is a super good starting point for determining kind of generally how much water you're losing or kind of fluid you're losing. And I think for most people, that's kind of enough information, right? As you pointed out, heat is going to shift that. I think that it's good to know too, like, I think it helps us recognize that, like our thirst response is pretty good, but it doesn't tell us everything, especially in longer events. Like we might need more hydration. I think especially as the weather, seasonal shift can affect it too. Like when days start getting cooler, and weather's a little bit damper sometimes in the winter, our thirst response right, the natural like kind of like desire to drink something usually is reduced just because we're like responding to these external factors. So yeah, like I think developing good feel is important, but it's also important to kind of back that up with those occasional check-ins, like you were just mentioning.
Yeah,
About, like,
and I think
that's super easy to do, right?
I think that's a key point too, because I've had athletes who, they've drink to taste, and I think that's been guidance in the past. And certain people won't have any thirst until basically it's starting to be too late and they're behind on their hydration. And so, yeah, putting into practice these like every hour I'm out, or every half hour I'm drinking this amount. And I think that for me, and from athletes that I've talked to, can be the harder thing actually. Taking in a gel or an extra gel is not as hard as taking in and ingesting more water. So I think it's something definitely to be thinking of just as much as how much you're taking in from a carbohydrate standpoint.
That's actually an awesome segue to a little question we got in the chat here of, do you too have a take on gels versus carb drink mix? And I will let you lead us off with an answer to that one.
Yeah, I would say that both are just tools in the tool chest. And so I usually gravitated and thought it was like just easier to use gels, but I'm definitely seeing the benefits of a carb drink. And I actually have one right here with this Precision, and it can make it a lot easier to just take in and not like think about it as much, and get both hydration and your fuel in at the same time. So I think that they should be used as kind of like as preference, and both at the same time is totally all right and can be super beneficial as you're looking to increase your carb intake, because sometimes getting 90 grams through gels just can be a lot, and so taking in through carb drinks can make it a lot easier.
For sure. I feel like it really comes down to personal preference a little bit, but like you said, it's two tools, and so you can try using both. You can try using a combination, or maybe you gravitate towards one or the other. Maybe you're mostly liquid, but just occasionally using a little bit of a gel, or or chews or something similar to just kind of keep that carb intake up and bumping it up.
And when we talk about like long endurance things too, it's like this variety can be super important, because taking in the same thing over and over, on hour 4, 5, 6, 7 of something, you might not be feeling like another gel. But if you've got, a drink mix that goes down pretty smooth, then that might be what you have to rely on even more than what you were planning on. So yeah, I think it's, again, just another thing to for sure not leave out if you are really trying to care about performance and how much you're taking in.
For sure. I think we probably have time if people want to drop any other additional questions.
I got some on my end.
Yeah.
So I've got, how many chances do you give to a product? Like if it messes your gut up once, is that it? Or do you work in second chances? So I guess I'd say that depending on how bad something messes my stomach up, I might be scared off of it. And I would recommend that, like, if you have something that like really messes your stomach up, I don't know if it's worth, there's so many options out there. I don't know if it's worth trying again, unless there's like some extenuating circumstance that like you got 100 of them and you want to just try again because you've got 100 of them, then maybe. But
I would say some advice there too, to like, if you're trying something, don't get 100 of them. And I would echo that point of like, if there are extenuating circumstances, right? If it seems like maybe like after the fact that there were like other factors at play with that stomach upset, like maybe you give it one more chance. If it like I'd say like if it tastes good to you, but
Yeah.
there was like some stomach disruption, then maybe it's worth giving it another go. But otherwise, if you're like taste was fine and it kind of messed with my gut, like I don't know.
I mean, with respect to like what you were talking about earlier, sodium bicarb, which is notorious, like you said, for messing up the GI system. Like I've had bad experiences with that, and I've adjusted it because the performance benefit is worth it to me to like try to figure out if I can take it in. And so, yeah, I've kind of measured and dialed in what works for me and what is too much for me. So there are, I think, are going to be cases where products are worthwhile in taking, even if you have a bad experience for it.
Yeah, and I think that type of for sure, and I think that type of product is for sure like in a different. We're kind of getting into like what we call like ergogenic aids, right? So kind of these things that might help
Ketones, like
recovery, performance, right? Like maybe it's worth giving things a few chances if if it seems worthwhile. But yeah, did you have another question for us from your?
Yeah, I've got another one from Anthony. That last one was from Matt. Thank you, Matt, for sending that in. So what do you think about the rule of thumb to eat 10 grams for every kilogram you weigh the day before a big race? So yeah, the carb loading modality, or so personally, there are, I think, a few different recommendations by these governing bodies that, have kind of flip-flop a little bit on what the recommendation is, how long this carb intake period should be. I think, in the past it's been the week leading up to it. And then, there's recommendations of like the 2 days leading up to it. I think that it for sure makes a difference. And I don't necessarily think that all carbs are made equal, in that ingesting that much in pasta or bread or just any solid foods. If anyone's ever done that before a race, they understand it's a lot of food, just a lot of food. And you really don't want a ton of food sitting in your gut before a race, because that has to go somewhere, and it will go somewhere during your race. So honestly, my recommendation, my guidance is experiment as much as you can. You can use your long runs or big days out to see what you can do and make sure you're getting in as much as you can, like the days leading up to it. But I personally like to drink my carbs before races, and so I have like a big thing of Gatorade mix, and I will chug that probably a gross amount for most people. That like it's kind of hard sometimes, but I find that I don't have this really full upset stomach that it just leaves me feeling a little drowsy. So to answer the question in concise, yes, I believe that carb loading before races works and is beneficial. And there's, I think, a smart way to do it. You got to play around with it, and just eating a bunch of pasta the day before the race is not something I would recommend.
Yeah, I just to build off that answer, because I totally agree with everything you just said. Yeah, I think gone are the days of the like spaghetti feed pre-race, like, and especially when we're talking about ultras, right? It's a long event. Carb loading the day before is like, there's only so much you're going to do anyway with that. Like, think of it as that week before that you kind of want to be intentionally and consistently topping up those muscle glycogen stores, right? Like, you're not doing as much training, but still, like, I think one of the things that people will find is like in those taper periods going into big races, especially, your hunger like spikes, right? I think that like a lot of us have probably experienced that, where it's like, and I've actually been meaning to pull up some more, like see if there's a little more research on this, but like I know just anecdotally, like this happens very consistently. And sometimes people are like, it's like, I'm not doing that much. Should I really be? It's like, yeah, just like this is the time to like listen to your body and like take the cues that you need to like carb up your body knows it's like getting ready for something. So just like through the week, like you said, and like hydrate, like drinking some of those carbs and some of those calories is a great way. Cause yeah, like when you can't like increase, and you don't want to increase like your caloric intake at meals a lot. This is same as true in training camps. If you're trying to get a little bit more, or training blocks, snack a little bit more, drink some more carbs, find those ways to kind of get it in that's not going to like disrupt your GI tract. Race day might do that enough. So you need to practice, and you need to make sure you're topping things up. But totally agree. I think those kind of outdated carb loading concepts are hopefully becoming a thing of the past. Hopefully we can help kill them altogether.
I think with it all, we're progressing, and while these tenets of truth hold, we're optimizing and finding better ways to implement them. So we've known, I think the earliest study was in 1939 that said, oh, people perform better at a high carb diet. And now we're just so far from that, and have learned so much that we can do this even smarter. So I think it's the best time to be an endurance athlete right now, because there's just so much out there. I do want to get to this one question. I know we're over time, but I think it's a kind of important, because we've been talking a lot about these gels and these drink mixes and all that stuff. But this one, can I just eat gummy bears instead of all this fancy sports gels? I'd like to hear your answer, and then I'm gonna share mine.
Yeah. Yeah is my answer. Yes, do it. I mean, I think that ultimately, I think that the feeling like you need to like fuel with some sort of like, not to pick on the name, but like precision fueling, right? Like, or like Whole Foods or something like that, is like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I think of it of like when you're mid race or like mid long run, your body's like a furnace, right? And it's like tossing, like whatever you're putting in there is basically like tossing some like kindling into a furnace. It's just gonna like burn up, right? It's not, now that is not the time to kind of like think about like, should I be eating like this sugar? So yes, eat gummy bears. That's my answer.
Yes, I agree. And we got another question that I think kind of does really good, fits into this line of conversation. It's glucose to fructose balance is a consideration, right? And so I think, all these companies, at least a lot of them, are subscribing to the research that suggests, we have two different pathways to absorb carbohydrates. And if we can have a right balance between these two different pathways, we can actually absorb more. And so, yes, it's important to be thinking about that. If you're not fueling super high amounts, and I actually have some gummy bears that I personally use on my runs, because these things, this is like $6 for this thing, and this whole box was $6. And if you look at like the calorie or the carb, amounts, like that's a better value. And so I'm using that for sure. And I'm also trying to be judicious on like, okay, what are they using in these things? Because that is going to inform how much I'm using of it. Because a lot of times these are just simple sucrose, sugar that, if you're just trying to fuel 90 or 100 grams of carbs just using the gummy bears, then you might run into some issues. And that's when you might want to be thinking smartly about like, okay, maybe using another, gel to also get those two pathways that have been found to, you're able to metabolize carbohydrates better. So yes.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, it's just like, it's two pathways. So can we maximize it a little bit more? individually, right? Like there might be a little bit of a shift of what's like, that's sometimes where like that can impact kind of the GI stress of like maybe the balances for people are a little bit different. But yeah, I think just being mindful of that to start, right? Especially on like the longer runs. But yeah, I think we should maybe wrap things up here. I know we've got a few things to give away, but also, we've been doing these for a few months now. Love to kind of keep them going. So if you guys have topics that you'd be interested in us, doing, you can either drop those in the comments now as we wrap things up, or you can always we'll post these on both of our Instagram pages. So you can, drop a comment in there of, what you want to see, shoot us a DM. But I don't know, do you have anything to add to that?
No, like I'm not surprised we went over on this topic, because I think hydration and fueling alone we could have had our own 2-hour long talks on those. And, each question I felt like kind of led down all these different paths. It's just so fascinating and intricate that, there's a lot of information out there, and it's just really fun to talk about. And so, yeah, if you've got any other topics of late that you want to have questions answered about, we're open to your suggestions. Obviously, that's kind of our thing, is we're just trying to answer your specific questions. So shoot them out our way.
Yeah, and if you want to hear us talk more about your questions, also let us know, because we can definitely make these happen more often. We're always happy to talk about this stuff. So if you guys have the questions and the ideas for content, we're all for it, and all about getting out here more and hopefully helping you guys become smarter and stronger endurance athletes. So how are things looking for the giveaway?
Things are looking great. We had the most questions submitted of all our talks. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And so we're going to do this. We're going to do 4 giveaways.
Ooh.
2 boxes of Carbs Fuel, and then 2 Precision packs, 3 packs. So I'm going to, let's see how we'll do the same way. Give me a number between 1 and 14.
8.
8. All right. That is Alyssa. Alyssa is going to take home a box of big old carb gels.
Nice.
Sweet. All right. We're going to do one more box of gels for the box of these carb gels. So again, 1 through 14.
I'm going to go 10.
That is going to be Matt. Matt's taking home another box of Carb Fuel. Sweet. All right. Amazing. Let's move on to the Precision Fuel packs. 3-pack of these. All right. Again, I'm going to need a number between 1 and 14.
I'm going to go with 1. Just
1.
Get you right off the bat. 1.
1. I love it. That's Jenny Sorrow. She gave us a question before tonight's live video, so she's going to be taking home a pack of these bad boys.
Nice.
All right, we've got one more pack of Precision Fuel gels. We'll need one more, 1 through 14.
Okay, I'm going to go with 11.
11. That is Anthony.
Nice.
So Anthony is going to be taking home another pack of gels. Sweet.
Well, we got some good giveaways. Hopefully folks put those to good use in increasing their carb intake. Thanks for all the questions before and during. And we'll be back on here soon. go ahead and follow us both. I'm MVB Coaching. What's yours, Joe?
I'm at From Here We Go.
Great. Give us both a follow. Drop a comment on when you see these videos or this video upload, and you can let us know what you want to hear about next time.
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
Thanks for joining.